the sheen and the softness. And yeah, I tried it and the bang looked okay on me, honey. And kind of like a high-low look alright. Or like I said, when it dried, like, yeah, it turned into something else. Oh, I had to share my embarrassing moment yesterday. So I went to lunch with my manager. I work downtown on Peachtree Street. And so generally when I go to work, I wear, because I keep my hair for a flat.
And you need to hit it when you go live?
It's already on.
Okay.
So you got it covered from all angles. She got it covered from all angles.
Oh my God, so we walking down the street to this restaurant. And I had my coat on, but I didn't have my hood on. And I put a cap.
Check 1 2. Mic check 1 2.
You know, dried out or.
Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2.
I didn't realize the wind was as strong as it was yesterday.
Oh no, it didn't come off.
I told her, I said, did it tumbleweed? Did it get down the road? She was like, no. I said, boy, look at here, boy. She said, my hat caught. I said, that wind, because that wind was blowing strong downtown yesterday. If that thing would have doggone went down the road, boy, she wouldn't have recovered that.
It blew, when I tell y'all, it was it was like a strong wind, just, it blew right off the wind.
It was that
everything.
It was that wind that came from Egypt.
Me and my sister, we laughed. I had to catch it, literally, and put it in my backpack until we got in the restaurant to put it. I said, okay, that's it. I just need to go ahead and let the cow hang out. Don't even cover that. Stop. Oh my God, it was so hilarious. Ooh, I don't think I laughed that hard in a long time. Goodness gracious. So, secure the wig. That's secure the wig. There's a lesson. Oh my God.
There's always a lesson in everything.
And I don't think I ever grabbed anything that fast. When I helped, I said, oh my God. Are you okay? I said, yes, I'm okay, but I don't know about this head. I said, I gotta go to the bathroom. Yeah.
All right, so yes,
On that thing you had on Facebook, I didn't know whether to laugh myself to death about it or whether I was like, yes, he's serious. I didn't know.
You can't tell.
But the thing that on Facebook that you was when you was going back and forth, you was like, oh my God, this nigga got on suits and all this stuff. I know.
Man, my wife, we sitting there looking at it too.
I was like,
I wonder if he's. I said no. I said I know this kid. Man, look at how he got all of him. Man, y'all pray for me, y'all. I didn't know such a ball. Oh man.
Before the video came on about 5 minutes early, I was just saying, I'm like, I wonder if they use him to kind of branch it out for him. They scared to say it, so they got him say it, and then your video came on, and I'm thinking it's all serious.
yeah, nah, I was just joking.
That's someone right there. He the one that said him. Yeah, him right there.
I was just joking around. I literally had to tell him because he thought that I was for real. So I'm like, no, I'm just joking. You know, he's like, no, we didn't set you up. I was like, I was just joking. It's
I ain't got no degree, man. I'm the only Hebrew over here, man. That's what I know.
Yeah, I was just joking. I know Prophet Frazier, he called me, he was laughing. He said, man, I watched that video about 5 times, man. He said, that thing had me laughing.
We didn't see it till we got home because I told my house, like, you know what, I want to just go back and watch the whole thing and just kind of like pick some things. That's why I kind of wanted that kind of discussion.
Right.
Because it was kind of, when we were there, you heard everything, but I wanted to go back and look at it from another perspective, like, okay, I'm watching TV now, let me go over here and really listen and glean from what everybody said, because I don't think some of the questions really got answered in that panel discussion.
Right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and start our Sabbath study, Bible study. I kind of came up with the conclusion that, you know, just based on everybody's schedule, it'd be kind of tough for us to kind of do midweek. I know we all kind of wanted to do that. That was my desire. I know my schedule, because I work in the evening, and then kind of everybody's kind of scattered. You know, most of us get off, you know, around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 5 o'clock. By the time you get through traffic and all that other stuff, it's pressing to try to get, you know, here to this location unless you just lived over here. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we just use the wisdom that the Father's given us. And I said, well, man, I mean, it's Shabbat, so it kind of would be better. People kind of more prepared to be able to just come early during Shabbat, and then we'll still have our regular service, but then we also want to have it to where it's a community type discussion. I think we all had a great time the last time, I think, when we talked about the deity of Christ, you know, Yeshua, and we all kind of dialogued and everybody fed off each other. We had able to ask questions. So we want to create the Bible study. We don't want it to be like our regular Shabbat service, because you don't get a chance to ask questions. You don't get a chance to dialogue and be the community that we are building. And I think that's the uniqueness about it. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to have it at 9:30, and we're going to have just different teachers, you know, different brothers coming up. We're going to have, even during the Shabbat services on Saturday, we'll even have it to where there will be dialogue and different things like that for even with the sisters and stuff like that. So it's going to be a community effort of us having discussions and things like that regarding Scripture, because it's very important not just for us as the men to be able to just stand here and have these dialogues and conversations, but it's also important for even the sisters to know the Scriptures. And not only that, but also be able to be used within the congregation to be able to bring some level of wisdom and understanding when it comes down to the Scriptures. And that's not a situation or a position of usurping authority. I think people need to understand that the Father is making us a nation of priests, which means that even our sisters need to know the Scriptures to be able to articulate themselves to other sisters. Mm-hmm. Not only that, but there's situations even within our congregation where there are going to be many sisters that get invited out from here. So why not prepare here so when you go out, it'll be a breeze and a cakewalk, you know? So it may be on your job, it may be your auntie from, you know, in the Baptist church or wherever, and she may be saying, hey, can you come? We're having a sister's day, and, you know, I want you to come speak, because you have a conversation with her all the time. And so that's what this is about. And we're going to get into Torah. Not only are we going to get into Torah, but we're going to also get into the foundational things of the gospel. So that way we can really get an understanding of the gospel. We did a great job as a community in understanding the understanding of what priesthood we're under. And I think we're going to continue that building of that foundation, and also how Levi is still important. The Levitical understanding and the foundation is still important, but we have to understand how does that look and how does that work with being under the priesthood of Melchizedek. And so I think that's a great start. But today, our discussion on today is we're going to deal with who rejected Christ, who rejected Yeshua. I think that's very important, the foundation to understand, because growing up in the church, we heard a lot about, the Jews rejected, you know, Christ, and it opened up the door for us Gentiles. That's why we're in, because they rejected him. And then not only that, it was declared as though like the whole nation rejected him. And so therefore, this is the reason why we are able to be grafted into this. And so my thing is like when we begin to look at the Scriptures, it's like, wait a minute, when we go back, this is why it's important to know the whole book, to really understand the history of it, because if that's the case, then, you know, what was going on before Israel was a nation? You know, and the promise was declared from the beginning. So the promise declared from the beginning, this promise was declared before Israel was even thought of. When Israel was in the loins of, actually, when Abraham was in the loins of Adam. You know what I'm saying? So we have to get an understanding. So What has been what have been some of the things that's been said growing up, or your understanding about who rejected Yeshua? What's been some of your understanding? And we open it up to the floor. We just gonna kind of dialogue on this, so it's no wrong answers or anything like that. Go ahead, Mother.
Okay, well, that pretty much what you said. That's the same thing that I was always taught too. That the Jews rejected, the whole nation of Judah rejected the Messiah, and they grouped everybody in Judah as the whole nation of Israel instead of the 12 individual tribes. They considered that like as that everybody rejected the Messiah. He came and I always ask myself, okay, well, what about all those people that was following him? What about all those people that were, the people that were healed and everything like that? But I also had a question, and I always was wondering, okay, well, what happened to them? Mm-hmm. And I hope we can touch on that a little bit too. What happened to the believers that were in Judea in 70 AD when Titus came in and when they, the destruction that came upon Jerusalem? Where did they go? What happened to them?
Right.
We can touch on that some.
Yeah, we're gonna see if we can get that. What's anybody else got anything else they wanna?
Yeah, I would say, pretty much the same thing as you touched on and Mother Anna, touched on, when something is constantly told to you over and over again, and you don't go study for yourself, you think, the whole nation of, Judah or the southern kingdom rejected them. I mean, that's what, that's why the Gentiles are grafted in, and once you start reading and things like that, even back to, Nicodemus and things like that, not everybody rejected them after you start studying for yourself, but on the outside looking in, people just saying, the Jews rejected them and things like that. That's why, Christianity, came about and things like that, so, but, yeah. Pretty much.
But hold on for a second. Anybody else got anything for it?
I think where that misconception came in at, and it's a misconception that they look at that as a whole, looking at it broadly. I remember when they brought forth Barabbas and they asked the crowd, who do y'all want?
Right.
And when they chose Barabbas, I think at that point, sometimes people have looked at that and said, okay, that was the whole nation, because it was, they asked, who do y'all want? So at that point, when they said, okay, everybody rejected Christ, and then that includes the whole nation, like some people can look at us and say, all black people steal. All black people don't steal, but because of so many blacks stealing, it put that stigma on us in the same light it happened with Yeshua, because we know everybody did not reject it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? John the Baptist, for one, did not reject it.
Right. Okay, go ahead, Imam. One more before we move on.
I was just gonna say that, too, I was also remember hearing that's how we're no longer, it's a spiritual nation, it's a spiritual, everything is spiritual, nothing is natural. So that means that it ain't about fleshly Israel, or it's not about anything, they don't have anything to do with it, because they did reject the Messiah. So it's now, everything is about being spiritual Israel.
Right.
That's the other thing I've heard.
That is true as well. So what we're hearing is, we're hearing that this is a misunderstanding regarding the people, right? So we're gonna be dealing with three areas here, okay? You have the people in one instance, which is Israel, right? Okay. You have the powers. Now, who were the powers of the day?
Sanhedrin council, basically, which stem of Pharisees.
I want you. No, listen to what this. Okay, this is what I'm saying here. Okay. Who were the powers of that day? Rome. Because Israel didn't have total authority even in Jerusalem. The Romans, remember, they said, if we leave him alone, the Romans are going to come and take our place, right? So they still was under the authority of Rome, regardless of them being like, go ahead, Deacon.
But they had their own government authority.
Right. They had their own government authority, but the final authority, they still had to answer to Rome.
The governor.
That's why Rome was able to even apply pressure to those. It's the same structure like we have now. We have our so-called black leaders, right? We got our so-called black Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, all them. But guess what?
The governor run the city.
Right. They still have to, in some ways, bow down to the ultimate government, which is America, or some of them even bow to the local governments, right? So there was governmental structures and things in place, but they were in position to make sure that they kept Israel at bay and control. They still let them keep their customs and culture. Same thing like America. We in America, we still keeping our customs and our culture and all these things, but yet we're still governed by laws outside of our nation, right? So if you go do something and violate their laws, their judges, so we don't have judges in America. Israelites, we don't have judges. We still have to go to their court systems, right? To deal with matters. Now we can deal with things according to Torah in that matter, but if a brother within Israel murder another brother within Israel, we don't have a government that we can enforce our laws. We still got to go and deal with the American government, right? So that was the same thing. Go ahead, Sister Kim, you had something?
No, I wasn't agreeing to.
Okay.
It's a lot of leaders now who have authority but don't have, well, they have power but no authority.
Right.
That makes sense.
So it's the people, right? Then you have the powers.
Yeah.
Now, who was in position? Israel was in position. We were in the position because, just as y'all said earlier, that Israel still had their own, they were in a position of authority, right? But they weren't the powers, right? Every time we went into a captivity, we still had our judges, we still had our governors, but guess what? When we was in the Greek captivity and under the Greeks, they still were the powers. When we was in Egypt, all right, there still was power. When we was in Babylon, we still had our governors, our government, all this thing, but there still was powers over us, right? Yeah. So these are things that are important. So we have to start from the people first. So we're going to deal with the people, then we're going to deal with the position, then we deal with the powers, okay? I hope we can get through this. We're going to stop at 10:40. All right. So is there any scriptures? I tell you what, let's start in John chapter number 1. I think that's very important. We're going to start there. Robert, can you check that line, make sure it's still on?
Yeah, it's still on.
Make sure people can hear us. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, sure.
Can they hear us?
Yeah. Because mine just cut on a couple minutes ago, a couple seconds ago. Yeah, and they still people waving.
Okay, so let's deal with John chapter number 1. Okay? John chapter number 1, and we're going to start at verse number 11. Okay? So everybody got John chapter 1?
Yeah.
All right. Sister McKay, can you read John chapter number 1, verse number 11, please?
He came unto his own, and his own received him not.
Stop right there. Now this is the famous passage that built the doctrine. Right? When I grew up in church, no matter if it was Baptist, non-denominational, Pentecostal, Kojic, apostolic, prophetic, all of that, I've heard this was the scripture that was isolated to use to build the doctrine that Israel rejected, and therefore it opened up the doors to the Gentiles. Right? Yeah. But again, we have to keep reading. Because immediately after that verse number 12, what does it say, Sister McKay?
But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of Yah, even to them that believe on his name.
Now see, Emma was talking earlier, like, well, what happened to the people? There were people following them. There were people that believed. You know why? Do you know why he got in trouble with the Pharisees and the Sanhedrin Council? Because people followed him because they believed. This is the reason why he got in trouble. Here's the thing. Many of them believed and knew he was the son of Yah. And you know, Nicodemus came to him. Nicodemus had rank. Nicodemus said, man, there's no way that he can do these things, he can teach like this, he can move the way he's moving, unless he be the Son of Yah. And the people like, no. Okay, he might be, but we cannot allow one man to cause us to lose our position of authority over the people. So we'll sacrifice him because they were more concerned about their position than prophecy. They couldn't see it. So the scripture already, the prophets already knew this. That's why the prophets was declaring it. We're going to get to the prophecy in a minute, okay? So this is very important to understand that as many as received him. So everybody didn't reject him. So now we got to start figuring out and breaking down, well, who rejected him? Who rejected? That's the next question of understanding we're going to go through, okay?
We read verse 13 too.
Go ahead and read 13.
Which were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of Yah.
Did you see that? Those who received him, read that real quick, that microphone. Read verse number 13 one more time.
Which were born not of blood.
Go read verse number 12, okay. And then 13.
Right. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of Yah, even to them that believe on his name, which were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of Yah.
See, wait a minute, stop right there. See, check that. He said, who believe on his name. Now we don't understand, we understand that they talk about his authority, okay? But here's another thing. It said those who believed and those who he gave power to were not people of blood, was not people of flesh, but of spirit, right? So wait a minute. Here's the reason why Yeshua can say, I have not seen such faith in all of Israel. Yeah. These Gentiles have more faith. Oh, see, there we go. We're killing that doctrine. We're killing the doctrine. It says he gave them power. Those who received him. So now we got people out here running around and talking about, oh well, he only deal with Israel. So now we come to a problem because you eisegeting, you add into the text based off of your personal preference. We can't do that. He clearly tell you those who believe. So now here comes the centurion soldier. He said, my servant is not doing well. He's sick. If you get a word, yeah, well, I go to your house. No. Besides, so see, his level of faith was based upon what he received by the Ruach. Right. Because the Ruach is the only one that can tell you that this is the Son of Yah. That's right. Right? So henceforth, the reason why the prophet can say he's going to pour out his spirit upon all flesh, your sons and your daughters, your maid servants and male servants. So wait a minute. He poured out his spirit on the servants too? All of them. Everybody. Gentiles, Israelites, Hellenized Israelites. Yeah, I had that Oprah say, you get a spirit. You get the Ruach. Go ahead.
Verse 12, but as many as received him. I'm looking at people that actually were in his presence. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That actually had an encounter with him, whether sitting under his feet teaching or having a one-on-one conversation with him, like the centurion God. But it didn't say God, the ones that also just believed on his name. Some people never even got to see him in the flesh up close.
Right.
Like you're preaching and teaching, some people may not ever come here to this physical building, but they receive the words on the internet. So there were other people that believed on his name that never even probably set foot in Jerusalem.
And see that's a great point. You know why that's a great point? Because his name went out. not just in Judea. His name traveled. And people believe, but they couldn't get to Jerusalem. They couldn't get to Judea. His name traveled everywhere. That's why the doggone Romans came. They're like, or the those in position, Israel, the Pharisees and Sanhedrin council. They're like, yo, this dude ain't even came up in the temple, but everybody coming in the temple talking about this dude. So folks like, you know what? I heard about that dude Yeshua over there in Judea. Hey man, I just came here. This is my last day of Shabbat here. I ain't coming back. I'm going over to see what they do. And so that's very important. So let's move on here. Y'all good with that? Anybody got anything they want to add? Y'all good? All right. So let's go to John chapter number 8. John chapter number 8. We have it say amen.
Amen.
All right. John chapter 8, Sister Couture, if you read verse number 31, please.
Then said Jesus to those Jews which believed on him.
Wait a minute, hold on. Those who?
Jews.
Okay, so in one aspect, okay, just keep reading. Go ahead. We're gonna come on, go ahead.
Verse 31. Then Jesus said to those Jews which believed on him, if ye continue in my word, then are ye my disciples indeed.
Wait a minute. Why he got to tell the Jews to continue in his word, but he don't have to tell the Gentiles to continue? He got to tell the Gentiles. He's talking about how great their faith is. You know why he got to tell them to continue? It's because they feel like they obligated to it. And he just said, the scripture just taught us in John 1 that it wasn't by flesh and blood. You ain't going to get the revelation of the Ruach or by the Ruach, and the Ruach ain't going to take over you. You're going to have to continue. You're going to have to receive. You have to open up your heart. You're going to do all of these things. And once you get the understanding of it, you got to continue to walk. Because there are many people that start on the journey and they fall off.
Yeah.
Wow. Or go back to what they used to.
Or go back what they used to. You can't feel obligated. Just, okay, you're an Israelite, now what? You got to continue in the walk. And here's the thing. For some people, I wish they didn't even know that they found out they was Israel.
Right, they're extremists. Yeah.
Yes.
Because they became worse than who they were. They became 10 times more of a devil after they found out who they was than before.
Yeah.
It's better that you didn't even know.
I agree.
There's some things that ignorance is not going to protect you from now that you them came into identifying that you're Israel. Because you develop a level of arrogance. And he's telling them that the forefathers did the same thing. They had a level of arrogance. So he's telling them to continue. Go ahead. Read that again, sister.
Then said Jesus to those Jews which believed on him, if ye continue in my word, then are ye my disciples indeed.
Okay, so you believe that I'm he who was sent. Now you got even a greater obligation. You got a great obligation to live that. Because guess what? No more, you're not going to have the blueprint of the Pharisees no more. Now I'm going to give you the blueprint of what it really looked like to walk in this Torah. Or what it really looked like. You going to take on my name? Oh, that's a great responsibility. Those who take upon his name and walk irresponsibly going to get judged the harshest. Can't play with this thing. All right, anybody got anything that they want to add? All right, okay. Let me see here. All right. John chapter number 11. Just in case. John chapter number 11 and verse number 43. John 11:43.
St. John chapter 11, verse 43
Yes,
reads,
sir. Mm-hmm.
And when he thus had spoken, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth.
Oh, I'm sorry. Keep reading. We're gonna read 43 through 45. So read that verse again.
And when he had thus spoken, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. And he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was bound about with a napkin. Yeshua said unto them, Loose him and let him go.
Okay, so now we see the scene is set. Y'all know this about Lazarus, right? So you know he about to perform a miracle, right? The Gentiles, they don't need to see no miracle. All throughout Scripture. He said, if I would have called another nation outside, they would have been doing what I told them to do. Y'all got to see miracles. Y'all worried about what we worried about is Israel. We worried about when we gonna rule again. When you gonna walk again?
Right.
When you gonna walk right? You worry about rulership. When are you gonna worry about if I'm going to make it and be judged properly and get an opportunity to get in the kingdom? I'm not thinking about rulership. I'm thinking about getting away from hell. Right? Because I can't rule and reign with him if I'm not living right. Or if I'm following man. Remember he said, this revelation does not come by. It didn't come by flesh and blood. We just read it in John chapter 1. Which he's telling, what Yeshua is telling us, we got to grow even more spiritually. Then once we find out and come into who we are and awaken to who we are, now we got to continue in the walk. And he says, then, if you continue to walk, you are my disciples indeed. Right? Come on, let's keep reading.
Then many of the Jews which came to Mary and had seen the things which Jesus did, believed on him.
So listen, this is talking about the Jews. We just read in John chapter number 8, says, he told the Jews that those who believe, if you believe in me, continue my walk. So now he's performing a miracle to the Jews. He came to be a demonstration to the Jews because we were supposed to be a nation of priests. We had fallen from keeping Torah. So he came and died for us. But also at the same time, if he don't come die for us, then how any other nation gonna have an opportunity? Right? So technically, he speaks to Eve in the garden about redemption for mankind. But he also uses Israel as a tool in his hand to bring redemption to mankind because we're relational people, right? But at the same time, he died for Israel, which continues the opportunity and the path and opens up the door for everybody, right, to have salvation. But we got an opportunity and an obligation because guess what? The contract we signed with him to be leaders. When a company offers you a position, right? You work in the company, but they offer you a position. When they offer you a greater position into being a supervisor, a manager, something like that, some companies have an additional contract and guidelines that you must follow because you're the leader. And you got people under you. And they are expecting you to follow out those orders in leadership. Now you're in senior leadership. Once you become, if you're a lay member in here or whatnot, once you become a deacon or an elder or a Moreh or something like that, there's another type of conversation that I have with you that I don't have with just the lay members, right? You have a greater responsibility. So it's the same thing that Yeshua, that the Father has called, he said, okay, I'm going to use you as a nation. You can't be arrogant because to be honest with you, many of us who do get in leadership, the company is not only expecting us to enforce their way, but they also expecting us not to have complaints against us. So we have to become even more humble as supervisors, right? But some supervisors go too far. That's why people go to HR. You don't want people to go to the Father on you, right? Oh, he mistreating, she talking to me in a kind of way. She harassing me and all this type of stuff, right? So the Father does have an HR department. Alright? Alright. Y'all got anything? Anybody want to add anything?
Not only does Lord call it money, I can see how the correlation between Israel, so to speak, being in a managerial position as far as spirituality is concerned. He then said that to much is given, much is required. Same way, so when you become a leader or walking in leadership ability, then the requirements for you goes up. But not only that, the judgment for you not doing what you're supposed to do is greater too. He's also said that his judgment is going to start at the house of God, right? So those ones, us that know to do right and don't do it, will be beaten with many more stripes than somebody that kind of really don't know.
Right. Mm-hmm. So let's read one more passage scripture. Brother Robert, could you read, let's go to Acts chapter number 21. Let's deal with after Yeshua's sins, right? Mm-hmm. Because we dealt with, while he was there were people who believed. So everybody didn't reject him according to the traditions that we were taught growing up in the church. Right. You know, that's why the Gentiles we Gentiles, we grafted in because all the Gentiles, Jews rejected him. So then all of a sudden, okay, well, if you grafted in, let's say hypothetically that's the case, right? Mm-hmm. But in scripture, he still tell you he forgot about his people. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, he's still going to deal with Israel, right? But the way it's being taught now is though Israel don't have no importance. Like they just forget about Israel. How can I forget about Israel and even as a nation when prophecy is still dealing with Israel as a nation? Through the Brit Hadashah, through the New Testament, from Matthew all the way to Revelation. He's still saying, I'm going to deal with Israel. And then Paul even says, listen, just because you grafted in, don't sit up there and think that that the Father done away with his people, or you greater than them, like he's not dealing with them, or they have no significance. So we have to really look at this. Yes, the church was in the wilderness, and it was brought about with a nation of people, Israel and others outside of Israel. The New Testament, you get to Acts, which is a very important book that everybody should bury their face in after the Gospels to know what the church looks like. Even in that, it still resembled what it resembled when it was in the wilderness, right? All right, so at the end of the day, when you start having the Ruach and the Spirit comes into play, the Spirit now rests. It resides in us. It rested on us in the wilderness, but it resides in us now. It also resides in the Gentiles. Because at the end of the day, the Father, when it goes out and the Spirit pours out, because we talk about prophecy, upon Israel and upon the Gentile, upon the daughters and the sons of Israel, as well as the bondmen and the maid servants, all of them. You see what I'm saying? So let's read Acts. Let's read Acts chapter 21. And we're going to start at Acts 21, 18 through 20. Okay.
And the day following Paul went in with us unto James, and all the elders were present.
Okay.
And when he had saluted them, he declared particularly what things Yah had brought among the Gentiles by his ministry.
Okay, so we're dealing with, you see the stage is set, you see who's there. I always remember people and the place. All right, those are very important. Who's having the conversation and what it's about. That's why I tell y'all when we're dealing with Paul's letters, keep the Corinthian church away from the Roman church because they dealing with a whole different matter. All right. So here's another matter that's going on in Acts. Okay, come on, read verse number 19 again.
Okay. And when he had saluted them, he declared particularly what things Yah had wrought among the Gentiles by his ministry. And when they heard it, they glorified the Lord and said unto him, Thou seest, brother, how many thousands of Jews there are which believe, and they are all zealous of the law.
Stop right there. Look at this and that. Here's the thing. See, let me tell y'all something. I want to say this to y'all, and I hope everybody, even folk online, hear this. Okay? I want all y'all to hear this. If a person believes that they're Gentile, after you presented it to them, let them keep that mindset. Mm-hmm. Stop arguing with these people. You can't force these people to believe they Israel. Stop it. Okay? If you believe you Israel, still continue being zealous of the law.
All right.
Yeah. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Okay? I want everybody to hear me, online, everybody. Because you're fighting a fight that's out of your control.
Yeah.
You yourself didn't come into the understanding that you was an Israelite.
That's right.
You know why? Because it was the Ruach that did it.
That's right.
Hallelujah.
That's right.
Somebody had to do it.
USPKK
You wouldn't say, Ken?
USPKK
Stop it. You're causing yourself unwarranted headaches. So, here's the thing. They had those even after Yeshua ascended. They believed in Yeshua HaMashiach, Yahushua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ. They believed in him as the Savior. But they also still loved keeping Torah. They didn't love keeping Torah for the fact of the benefits. They loved keeping Torah because it was the ways of Yah. It's a difference. Some people want to keep Torah because of the benefits. That's why we got all these arguing and bickering. No, you should love to live right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
It should be so stop trying to find scripture to justify what you like and love the Torah. Paul he said, I believe everything in the law. I love the Torah. When you love the Torah, it becomes a part of you. When you love the Torah, I don't need a schoolmaster. Because I don't need something to tell me that I'm wrong. When I grew into loving my wife, because at first when you first meet the person, you don't just love them.
That's right.
You like them. Some people, after 10 years, they still infatuated. They love the benefits of the person, whether it's financially, whether it's how they shape, whatever. But it's a different thing when you grow into loving them. Right?
Yeah.
When you love them, it don't matter if they big, it don't matter if they small, it don't matter how many children they have. You know? Even after they have children, they still fine.
That's right.
That's right.
You ain't looking for another
That's right.
because you love that person. Right?
Right.
You love walking, being with them. You love seeing them when they wake up in the morning. All these things. And that's the issue. The issue is people just want to be able to use Torah as a weapon. People want to use Torah for whatever benefits that they can get. It's very seldom you find people that just love Torah. When you love Torah, you want to do everything you can to make sure that you honor your brother, you honor your marriage, you honor your elders, you make sure the homeless, you love the homeless, all of these things. Right? So read the last verse again.
Okay. And when they heard it, they glorified the Lord and said unto him, Thou seest, brother, how many thousands of Jews there are which believe, and they are all zealous of the law.
So when they heard about how he was being used amongst the Gentiles, right? Then they say, brother, they rejoice. They didn't say, brother, you ain't doing it right. You don't take all that out. Why you over there with him out? You're not properly building the nation, right? The nation already built. We just scattered. Right? But then they say, you see how many Jews which believe in the all zealous of the law? They didn't argue with them about, we ain't under the law no more. You're not going to bring me back under the law. Why are you trying to bring them under the law? Or Israel is not a physical people anymore. Why you focus on heritage? These things, they were mature believers. They understood the mission. The mission was to preach the gospel. And then Paul's thing was by any means necessary.
Hallelujah.
That was 1 Corinthians 9, 19 through 23. To sum it up, by any means necessary. Right?
Right.
To Jews, I became as a Jew. By any means necessary. Without compromising. When I was around the Gentiles, I had conversations that they understood. See, this thing, what Paul is talking about in 1 Corinthians 9, that wasn't a new thing. Yeshua laid that blueprint. He didn't just come up with that. But he worded it in a way to where he said, listen, the Gentiles, when I'm weak, I became as weak. I understood them. And when you understand a people, you know how to reach people. The problem is we don't understand people. And we trying to reach them. Paul didn't just take, okay, well, I'm going to take how I reach the Jews, and I'm going to use that to try to reach the weak. He didn't take it. No, that's not wisdom. Okay? Y'all got anything?
I can say, well, that's a zealous of the law is a perfect, when you say love, and zealous of the law is a perfect example of when Yeshua said, I have not done away with the law and the prophets, but I came to fulfill.
Right.
Fulfill is another spiritual aspect of loving, it being embedded into your heart instead of becoming bondage or something you do as a rule to keep you safe, so to speak. You know what I'm saying?
So let's look at the position. Okay? Give the mic to Brother Bernard Senior, please. Brother Bernard Senior, I want you to read Luke 19, and we're going to read verse 20 through 22. And we're going to, this is going to be a two-part, so we'll come back next Shabbat and deal with this, because I want to get out. We got 10 more minutes before we start our regular service. So we're going to deal with Luke chapter number 9. So we're dealing with the position. We dealt with the people. So we looked at scripture to show, everybody didn't reject Yeshua, right? There were those who did believe, but there was also some who rejected him. The prophets laid it out of who would do this. So we know we have the people, which is the nation of Israel, that the position, who was in position of authority, which was the Pharisees, the Sanhedrin council, and the scribes, and then we also had the powers, which was the Romans. Okay? All right, so let's read Luke 9, verse 20 through 22.
He said to them, but whom say you that I am?
Come on.
Peter answering said, the Messiah of Yah. And he sharply charged them and commanded them to tell no man that thing.
See that? Look at that. This for y'all. He said, this for y'all. Which in it, everything ain't to be told. See, that's what we got to learn how to keep our mouth closed about certain things. Right? Some things ain't to tell everybody. He said, so this thing right here, because don't just go tell people, because I don't want people to believe by hearsay. I don't want people to believe because they trust you. Because there's some people may believe something just because you got a relationship with them. No, I can use that, but I want these folks, because remember, he said in John 1, flesh and blood, those things does not reveal to you. You're not going to get power by that. You got to have faith. That faith is what activates Yah in your life. If you don't believe that somebody can be healed, they ain't going to be healed. Hallelujah. If that person don't believe they can be healed, they ain't going to be healed.
Hallelujah.
So the power comes by the faith, not only in us as a community, as a nation, as a congregation, but also it comes by the individual too. The one with issue of blood didn't have, the nation didn't believe that she could be healed. She did. Right? Yeah. So come on, let's read.
Saying the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and chief priests.
No, the whole nation of Israel.
By the elders and the chief priests.
No.
and the elders and the chief priests.
No, you reading it, you got a bad interpretation of the Bible.
By the elders and the chief priests.
By the elders and the chief. So the Son of Man must be rejected by the leadership. Because the leadership determines doctrine. The leadership is the one that the people trust in. Right? Now here's the thing. All the leaders didn't.
That's right.
Because Nicodemus is a prime example. Yeah, now aren't you supposed to be a master teacher? Now he has some areas that, you know, here's a lot of his tradition that he trusted in, which is, you know, normal in the day, but he understood spiritually. There's something about his no way, this dude right here. But he came to him at night because there ain't no way he getting caught in the public with this dude.
That's right.
Bro, I'm not gonna lose my ordination.
See?
Lose my ordination papers around here, you know, rocking with you. Now, I believe in you. I ain't taking no chances on that though.
Just in case.
Just in case. You know, we can meet at the Waffle House at 2 in the morning.
Buy you some pancakes.
Yeah, I ain't gonna be seen with you prime time breakfast.
Yes, sir.
We'll see you meet with you at those 6 or 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. All right, come on, read that verse again.
Verse 22, saying the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and chief priests and scribes and be slain and be raised the third day.
So he must suffer by those in position. There are people that are in position of power right now that are bringing Christ through suffering all over again. By how they teach and how they won't tell the truth, by the thing how they live, they stealing, they fleecing the people, all these type of things. Then you persecute them again by, oh well, we covered under grace, so you know people just doing what they want to do. He didn't die so you could do what you want to do. He died to make sure you had an opportunity so you won't be put in hell or destroyed or whatever, however you view it. It's totally separated from Yah. Let's just say that. Okay? So the elders and the chief priests, they rejected him. Okay? Let's go to Bernard Senior. Let's read John chapter number 11. John 11 and verse number 47 through 48. Y'all enjoying Bible study?
Yeah.
Verse 47. Then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees a council and said, what do we? For this man does many miracles.
So wait a minute, look. Listen what it said. So they identify. Now these are the chief priests and the elders who supposed to know Torah. This is why I tell people all the time, you can be biblically educated and spiritually dumb. You reading every single day. It's always the people, because in the culture of the day, they watching, they are reading and making sure that every jot and every tittle, all is defined. They're just not just reading the scriptures just haphazardly. No, when they're reading, they are reading, I mean, almost microscopic, making sure everything is right and properly, right? And making sure that those who are teaching, make sure they're teaching properly. So they have these schools of the Pharisees and all these different things and different teachers of the law, but yet they reading and they know the stuff that he's doing. See, they declaring out of their mouth. They declare, come on, read, Brother Bernard.
Verse 48.
47.
Oh, 47, okay. Then gathered the chief priests.
So the chief priests are gathered, come on.
And the Pharisees a council, and said, what do we? For this man does many miracles.
What do we do? Come on, read.
If we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him.
Wait a minute, so they don't want the people to believe in Yeshua. They want the people to believe in them. And this is the same thing we got today. That's why people can make statements like, we the only one got the truth. Well, if you're not rocking with this assembly over here,
You ain't in the truth.
then you ain't in the truth. Or, well, that assembly over there, they don't look like Israel. They ain't talking about the spirit. They ain't talking about the Ruach now. We don't look like, you don't look like Israel. As though everybody of that day, like you just, I guess you don't dress like an Israelite. I guess that's kind of what it is in our day.
Yeah.
Nobody want to worry about dressing.
That's right. Right.
You see what I'm saying? And then you ask, like, well, where in Torah are they violating? And they can't find nothing. Oh, they just don't. They just don't. So you're looking for a community based on look. You're not looking based on the Ruach. Ruach, the only thing they're gonna give you revelation. So these brothers are they've read, they are very educated, they know. They see him performing miracles. But the people gonna believe on him. Because if they start believing on him, he don't just have one place, because he got 3 years to do this thing. He just didn't have one place that he just stayed in functioning in, right? Even though after he ascended, there were congregations established in one locations and stuff like that, just like you had temples in different locations and things like that you go to. But his mission was to make sure he empowered as many people as possible. He got his disciples, took them on the road, right? They were doing missionary work. That's where this term missionary comes from. When I grew up in the Baptist church, they just threw it on women. Oh, that's missionary such and such. And she ain't doing no missionary work. Oh, that's evangelist such and such. Evangelist and missionary ain't the same thing. That's evangelist such and such. She ain't doing no evangelism work. She ain't been nowhere. She don't even know the Bible. I'm serious. Come on, read verse 48 for us, brother.
If we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him, and the Romans shall come and take away both our place and nation.
Look at that. We got to protect the nation from him. Now, he ain't asking for no offerings. He ain't doing none of that. Matter of fact, listen, here's the thing. Yeshua not even telling them to leave the synagogue. He didn't tell them to leave. Matter of fact, you might only find 2 times in the scripture where he even went in the synagogue. But he didn't go in. He was out teaching publicly. The word just traveled. They was meeting in place. Matter of fact, he was even feeding people. He giving miracles. He giving stuff away. Don't be around him.
CNN wasn't even there.
No, wasn't nobody there. Wasn't no CNN, Fox, nothing.
They do something when they do something, and they bring people to highlight what they're doing.
Right.
When I'm gonna get some turkeys or something, I can't just do it without having somebody to make it known so everybody can see that I'm doing something.
Yeah, you got it's just like today. You got, and I use us for example. You got Christians and Israelites. Stay away from them. Don't go over there. You got the Christians saying, them Israelites, don't go over there. Then you got the Israelites saying, don't go over there. They Christians.
Where you go? Stand in the middle.
Just stay away.
Don't listen to their music.
Don't listen to their music.
That's evil music.
Spirits in the music.
Ain't no real, bro. Ain't no friends on.
And just stay away. And then people ask, well, what's the problem? He said, don't worry about it. Just stay away. Yeah. They got the Corona boom virus. But that's the thing. All we're trying to do is live according to Torah as best we can, love Yeshua, love Yah, receive and embrace the Ruach. And as we do that, we just walk in. We just walk around. I tell people all the time, I say, if you want to know what we are, read the book of Acts. We are an Acts-driven church.
Hallelujah.
Just study the book of Acts. Study the book of Acts. Because see, it's strange to people in this day and time. What we doing ain't new.
That's right. Yeah.
What we doing is Bible. We just doing kingdom. That's what we doing. We ain't tripping on no name. They bugging out. They like, what, they ain't tripping on the name. We sit there watching the lesson. I hear Yeshua. Casey say Jesus. I heard Ak over there say Yahweh. They losing their minds over that stuff. And the Most High just sitting there laughing. Like, this is amazing. Because they get it. That's what I'm saying. We will not diminish Yah or God, let's say the title. We're not going to diminish him to this little box that y'all have. We talk about the creator of the universe, who can split an atom without even, matter of fact, the one who created the Big Bang. Created everything we see. We read the scriptures and we see him parting the seas and sending plagues to Egypt and delivering Israel. And we'll talk about how he's going to fight our battles, but then we act like we act like he's limited in an area, like his capacity is so small that he don't know who we talking about. We will not diminish him to being a man. He's not limited. He's unlimited.
Hallelujah.
And this is what they did. Keep them folk away from him. And then you be deceptive by having a council. Then you take him by night. And all this other stuff. Thinking that if you step in, he already showed you he know your thoughts and all this other stuff. And you think you're going to have a secret meeting? You think that you're just going to roll up on him with your humility, false humility? Good master. Good master. Can a man divorce a woman? First they come gangster. He's a heretic. He this and that and third. That wouldn't work because he cut him up. Then they come with their little false. We found this woman caught in adultery. Here, good master, good rabbi, master teacher. Like them titles matter to you.
Moses said this, but what you say?
Moses say this, but what you say?
You have said so.
And then, you know what he said? He said, y'all talking about Moses. Let me take you back further than that. Abraham rejoiced in my day. They say, what?
Oh, I know you don't.
See the facade and the falseness of humility that he knew they was working with, he just brought out what was in him. So he'll go back, he said, y'all talking about Moses, let me take you back before Moses. They start calculating, wait a minute, he's 29 years old. How in the world Abraham rejoiced in his day? Ain't this Joseph's son? Joseph the carpenter. He the carpenter boy. What in the world he talking about? Abraham rejoiced in his day. Then he talking about, my Lord said to my Lord. Like, what you mean? Your Lord, you got a Lord. He who sees the Son also sees the Father. He was bugging them out. They've never heard sayings like this. But these are the ones that's supposed to be the master teachers. Couldn't identify who he was because they was too worried about their position of power. Same thing like the disciples. When they got to Acts chapter number 1, they said, listen, is it time for us to come back to rule? Like y'all worry about the wrong thing. You worry about rulership. That's none of your business. That's above your pay grade. What you need to be worried about is preaching this gospel. That's what you need to worry about. Preaching the gospel of the kingdom. Because you know Israel got a gospel too. That's why I say, this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached, not this gospel of Israel. See, I'm going to do a lesson on the difference between the gospel of Israel and the gospel of the kingdom. That's what people need to recognize and understand. When you know you Israel, you don't worry about preaching the gospel of Israel. You worry about preaching the gospel of the kingdom. Okay? We're going to end right here because we over 6 minutes. I'm glad I ain't make no covenant with y'all. Anybody got anything they want to add as we close the lesson? And get ready for 11 o'clock service?
That's one thing. I'm just grateful even being...
Hold on for a second. Look on the live. Kind of scroll up, see if there's any questions or anything on there. Okay. If you got any questions on there, put it on there. But go ahead, put it in the stage.
It's just so a blessing for me to be ever so grateful and thankful that the Most High allowed my eyes to open to see, because the last statement you made about that position people were blinded by. It could be that the Most High allowed you to be blinded so that you could reject Him. You could be damned in hell.
Right.
So it's quite an opportunity and a privilege to be able to have our eyes and minds open to see the truth and therefore walk in it. Because we could be not knowing the truth and being ignorant and rejecting Him all along. But now that we can be able to see the truth and know the truth, that's a blessing. And not even the truth about being Israel, but just the truth that He is who He said He was.
Yeah.
I mean, that's that. That's a blessing.
Good. That's it.
Yesterday, this gentleman at my job, he was talking to me. He was like, you believe in God, right? I do. You believe in the Bible? I do. And then he said, the Bible's a lie. And
I ain't gonna ask you a gainsaying question, then turn the Bible a lie.
The Bible's a lie. It was written by white men, and you know that black people were originally from Egypt.
Oh, he's commit Kemet.
And I said, oh. I said, okay. And he was like, so what do you believe?
What did you just ask? What I believe.
This was this conversation with this guy yesterday. And I said, well, I'm an Israelite. He said, oh, you one of them. And I'm like, okay, Father, now you really getting on my nerves. So he's following me back to my office, and he just thought, he started talking about, how we are the real people, and that the Egyptians that you see now, they're not. And I'm like, okay. So I'm in my office and I'm typing. I'm like, oh, okay. The whole conversation I had with him, and then he said, so what do you think? I said, about what? He said, well, about everything that I just said. I said, well, technically, I said, you kind of getting on my nerves. And he said, well, how come you didn't say nothing? I said, because you was talking. And he got so offended. Well, why do you sit here all this time listening to me? I wasn't listening to you. I said, you were talking. I didn't want to interrupt you because apparently you were enjoying and believing what you were saying. I'm not going to, go against what you believe. I said, versus what I believe. And he said, so now how come you don't believe? I said, well, the church that I attend, my pastor did this phenomenal lesson about, what we believe and why versus what you believe and why. You might want to check it out. And he stood up. You let me sit here all this time and talk, and I'm like, why are you mad? Because I'm not believing what you're believing.
You know what you should have told him? You should say, hold on. You need to sit down. Because the black woman is God.
That's
what you should have told him.
Right.
That would have taken me a whole nother
He's
dollar.
sitting up there talking about something. Oh, they're talking because that's his belief system.
It is their belief system.
His belief system is the black woman is God. You should have told him, sit your behind down and listen to what I say.
Yeah.
And believe what I say. Because the black woman is God. And not only that, is the black woman God, I'm going to show you by denying your papers.
Spiritual decision maker around here.
That's right.
The Bible teaches that woman should not use.
Here's not quoting scripture then. See, that's the thing. That's why it's important because even with these Bible studies, we're going to be getting into those teachers. We're going to have our regular service time, but when we have Bible, we're going to get into Kemet, we're going to get into apologetics, we're going to get into all that stuff, evangelism and all that stuff. So that way, when people come to you, like how they came to Sister McKay, and all she did was, you know what she did? She did just what Yeshua did. When the Pharisees came to him about the woman caught in adultery, she would start writing in the dirt.
All right.
He talking, she writing in the dirt. But what, and then they ask her, what you think? I mean, you ain't bring the man. Why am I even entertaining this? So that's all she did was just write in the dirt. And he got mad. The same thing like the Pharisees. So there is power in ignoring.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know why? If we do it to our kids, they lose their mind.
Yeah.
You ignore them, that's like the most powerful weapon in the world. You know, my mother and them, they grew, man, they masterfully, I don't know if Ema can testify, they masterfully learn how to ignore. It was masterful. It was so bad, they'd be in the store, they ignoring, I mean, kids, you see lines of kids falling out on the floor crying. And they walking just straight by, ignoring. And guess what? After a period of time, you realize ain't nobody paying you no attention. Get up. All right, y'all got anything else when we close and have a little minute to transition? Everybody good? The Bible study good?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and transition into our regular service. And,
Big bro, you had I think that's Shantae's people. I think she was misinformed on what time we do this and what time we start service. So
I posted it.
Yeah. She was like, I thought it started at 11.
Who said that?
Nola Darling. I think that's Shantae's people. You said move down here from Jacksonville.
Oh, well, she'll be at 11.
Moderation.